Okay, so this one's a slightly different function with GIMP. I've used this before in research where I take two images of kind of a before and after I do an experiment on something. And this is a technique that really helps emphasize what's similar in two images or what's really different in two images. And so what we're going to do, I have two images here. I set up my camera on a tripod and pointed it at my bookshelf. And then I changed the position of two books, the teal ones, the Impressionists, and then the other one, Great Paintings of the Western World. And some of the books slightly changed angle from me bumping against them while swapping those two books' location. And I'll make the top layer go invisible so you can kind of get a view. So you can see it's a little bit different, but it's the sort of thing that unless you were paying attention to it, and it wasn't in photo mode, you'd probably never notice it at all. And so I wanted something that, for the most part, was very, very similar because that's how I can really show what this does. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top layer. I'm going to go up to Colors, Colorize, and I'm going to bring this down where you can see it. The box comes up by default on hue of 180. That's cyan, which is a mix of blue and green. I'm going to bump the saturation up to 100. It usually helps a little bit on this. Okay, so I've colorized that layer. I'm going to go to the other layer, and I'm going to add color to it. I'm going to go with 0, because 0 is red, and I'm going to go with 100 on saturation. Now, red and cyan, they add together to make white, effectively. Red, blue, and green add together to be white. And so what I've done here is by having one that's cyan and one that's red, wherever they have strong signal, like this book here, you can see it's cyan in that picture, and it's red in this picture. When I add the two together, they're going to show up white. Anywhere that's dark is going to be black. Black and black makes black. So that's going to remain the same. So for the most part, every place where it agrees, we're going to have black and white imaging, and where it doesn't agree, we're going to see red and blue. So I'm going to make that happen by selecting the top of the two layers that I want to mix together. I'm going to go up to Mode. It normally says Normal. I'm going to do the drop down and go down to Addition, because I've got two different colors here. And there we go. I've got a black and white image, and wherever there's color, you can see cyan and red. That corresponds to a signal in one of the pictures that isn't in the other. And so it really emphasizes what has changed between these two. You can even see these shifted a little bit. There's red over here and cyan over here and white in the middle, because that's where it overlaps. Now that's one way of doing it. And you look for the color amongst a black and white image to see the difference. There's another way of doing it, so I'm going to do Control-Z a bunch of times to return them back the way they were. And I'm going to do Colorize again. This time I'm going to go with cyan like I did before, saturation up to 100. And on the other one, I'm going to colorize it, also cyan, up to 100 for the saturation. Okay? And then I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of going to Addition, I'm going to go to Subtract. And that takes the top layer minus the values of the bottom layer. So anywhere where they agree, whether it be both of them say it's a bright color, or both of them say that it's a dark color, they both subtract off, and you end up with pretty much 0, so most of the picture goes to black. In this case, what's different between the two images is whatever you can actually see, because wherever they mostly agree, that's going to subtract off and be pretty much black, be pretty close to 0. So in this case, the cyan and the red, that's where, again, it comes into which one has signal over the other. But for the most part, everything that you're looking at here, anything that you see signal-wise, that's something that's different between the two images. Now, subtract, I believe, is the top layer minus the bottom layer numerically. You can also do difference, which is one layer subtract the other, and then it takes the absolute value of it. So things that would normally drop below 0 and just be 0 in the other mode, they'll actually become a signal in this, depending on how different they are. So you can see some of the outline of the books and whatnot. Though I think with this particular instance, that may be because one photo was slightly brighter than the other. I think it caught it at a slightly different exposure. And so you can play with those different options to see what works best to emphasize what you're looking for. But in this case, I think Subtract does a better job with this. So it's a very specialized type thing, but it's great at showing differences between, well, I should say it can show what is the same between two images and what is different between the two. So hopefully that's useful for you.